we are, and it is a special tonight on Live Talk with Becky Chernek. It is Thursday, and it is November 10th. Oh my gosh, I cannot get over how fast time is going. Thanksgiving is almost here. Go figure. Okay, so for those that are here for the first time, new to this channel, I am Becky Chernek, and I have been providing the very best in finance and insurance training for auto dealers throughout the USA, as well as you can find me in Canada too. And from the time that that customer touches down on that dealership website to that BDC, from sales to desking, from desking to the F&I office with a designated F&I manager or even a single sales associate. And we'll talk about that approach as well. And I got to tell you, this is being broadcast through YouTube as well as Facebook. Now, Facebook fans, this is being broadcast right now on that F&I Today with Becky Chernek, and I got a special going on there with regard to my F&I online training. So make sure you tune in. And then, of course, we're going live here on LinkedIn tonight. So, guys, thank you. If you like, please share. And it's a pleasure to bring in Mr. David Spisak. And gosh, talk about history in the car business. I've got him on here tonight. David, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here, Becky. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So, boy, let me tell you, you have been hitting it hard on LinkedIn, and I'm like, wow. So it resonated with me, right? The messages that you have been sharing with regard to what's going on in our industry as it pertains to holding our team members accountable. And, you know, especially in the last couple of years, let's face it. I mean, these guys had it pretty easy, right? When it comes to sales and profits, and both, not just sales, but also in F&I. And now it's time to maybe roll up those sleeves and get back on track and get our skill set back on track.
Yeah, you know, I kind of harken back to the early days of Facebook when I remember the first time I got on Facebook and it asked what your status was. You know, I was married, but you could put single or married. And I remember one of their options was it's complicated. I thought that's great, but completely appropriate, certainly for some people I know. And it's appropriate today. You know, it's complicated. Because, you know, if you go back to 2019 and prior to then, I mean, it was the car business as we've always known it. And certainly there's always evolution in this business. But for the longest period of time, certainly well over a decade and probably close to 2 decades, we were barreling down a road where we were doing a pretty good job of devaluing our respective brands, right? And if you look pre-pandemic, there were a lot of brands, a lot of models, a lot of manufacturers that the reality is they were selling the average car for under invoice, not under MSRP, under invoice. So we were not only were we not holding the value of the car, imagine going into a Nordstrom's or going into a grocery store, you know, and not paying whatever that suggested retail price is. It's so common everywhere else, but we are in a very unique business. We're the only business on the planet that I know of that a customer could look up what we pay for our car, right? And we're also in a business that historically has had tremendously high turnover in one particular area of our dealerships, and that's in sales. And that has meant that it's been very challenging, not just to find great people, but to retain great people. And also equally challenging, Becky, for our organizations to go out there and commit to long-term training. Because at the end of the day, you've got to be training constantly in that scenario. Now, the reality is that we have been spending the last 2.5 years of our existence. And this is what I've been telling all my dealers. I work with dealers across the country. I also serve, as you probably know, as a board member or an advisor, consultant to some of the best solution providers, tech companies out there. And I'm very proud to do that. I work with the best of the best of the best. But what I've been sharing with my dealer clients is this. If you think about it, Becky, what I tell them is, do you realize that your sales managers and your sales people and even F&I just completed a 2.5-year rigorous curriculum on how not to have to sell anything? You see, anybody that walked in the last 2.5 years was simply looking, hoping that you would have a car for them, either new or used. And if you did, they were very prone to paying full price. And if, it's crazy. For years, we've seen brand devaluation, and the pandemic and chip shortage did some things that we have never been able to accomplish. It right-sized inventory like that, new cars and used cars. It eliminated wholesale problems like that. It eliminated wholesale loss like that. And it restored 100% of the brand value. I mean, for God's sakes, vehicles, models we couldn't sell for anything, for making and no profit whatsoever. All of a sudden, they're being sold for over sticker, over MSRP, and sometimes thousands over MSRP. But now things are shifting. Interest rates are rising. Inflation is stubborn. Gas prices have stabilized at a higher rate than they've been in the past, and they don't seem to be interested in going back to the previous levels around $2.40. And we have a certain level of buyer fatigue. Credit card debt is up. Cash savings is still better than it's ever been, contextually, right?
Mhm.
But cash savings has been dwindling as well. And at the end of the day, you just saw a report from Ally Bank in their Q3 earnings call that their applications were off by 200,000 applications, which caused Carvana, CarMax, AutoNation, and others to get hit significantly in their stock value. CarMax got hit 26%. They got other things driving that. But even CarMax, who's rock solid, got hit 20%. Why? Because there's the belief that reduction that we saw in the Q3 just for Ally is probably industry-wide. It's probably happening at most banks, and it's probably going to persist as we go through Q4 and into 2023. So you said it. It's time to roll up our sleeves. It's time to take action right now. And listen, what we do as dealers today is going to dictate where we end up in Q1, Q2, Q3. And the reality is simple. As I said in my post, we have been the byproduct of market circumstances, market forces. And usually when you hear the expression, when life happens to you or you happen to it, either life happens to you, you happen to it. Usually when life happens to you, it's always bad news. For the last 2.5 years, like everything else that's been turned upside down, life has happened to dealerships all over the country, and it's been nothing but good news. But we're winding down on that. I'm seeing new car margins decline, used car margins decline. I'm seeing aging I haven't seen in used cars in over 2 years. I'm seeing F&I PVRs decline. Why? The average loan value is going down. It makes sense. We were selling everything at sticker or over. Our loan values went up. Our PVRs went up along with them. And people were far more likely to buy additional products. Now, as everybody's facing a bit of the squeeze that we're seeing financially due to higher interest rates and inflation, people, I think, are taking a harder look. People are pausing. And the bottom line is, listen, this is not good news or bad news. It's not that you're going to have bad news. It's good or different. And if you could embrace different, if you could shift, modify, rethink, reinvent, I believe 2023 could be another great year. But
So I
yeah,
have
yeah.
Paul Machine here, and he
Oh,
says, David,
I like Paul.
gosh, let me tell you something. He loves you.
Yeah, I like Paul.
100% truth, David. Christine Farnan is here as well. And Paul mentions here, David, I've posted the number 2 concern I hear from dealers is
He's not
my
lying.
staff doesn't know how to sell, and they're order takers. So what's up with that one?
Well, Becky, listen, think about it. Like I said, the market condition, the forces of the market have allowed them to triple or quadruple or more their income. Think about it, guys. 2019 and before, I used to have to sell 30, 40 cars if I'm a salesperson to make $5,000 a month. Face it, half the deals out there were minis, $75 minis, $100 minis. Do the math. 30 deals at $100, $3,000. Not very good. Okay. So all of a sudden, what are those 30 deals rendered today? Well, that average gross now has gone to probably $90,000 to $120,000. Let's do the math together times 20%. That's $18,000 to $24,000 from $3,000 to $4,000. Think about that. 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. And I'll tell you something every dealer needs to pay attention to. I'm serious. Number one is training. If you're not training every day right now, your people have been taking orders. They've been clerks. And I said this to one of my clients, a client. And I said, I don't mean to offend anybody. His sales managers were on the line. I said, but let's be honest. And if some of you get pissed off, so be it. But let's be honest. If we replaced our sales staffs with mannequins in the last 2.5 years, okay, the reality is you would have made no less money. Chances are the people would have come in, still paid full sticker, paid over sticker. The dynamic wouldn't have shifted. Now, I know that's ludicrous. It's preposterous, and I don't want to insult anybody. That's not my intention. But I do want to hit people bluntly in the forehead with reality. The reality is somebody came in. Do you have this? No. Do you have one coming? Yes. When's it coming? I don't know, 3 or 4 months. You could put a deposit down. Is there a discount? No. Okay. Or do you have this in stock? Yes, I do. Great. How much is it? It's $40,000. Can I get a discount? No, you may not. Okay. And they just bought the car. That's it. So the reality is we've not had to sell anything for 2.5 years. Today, now a customer comes in and says, I don't know, man. I don't know. I can't afford it. I can't put another $3,000 down to get my payment down. The average payment, Becky, in the month of October, Paul, the average payment was $716 a month. Now, we're stringing payments out 72 to 84 months. That's not what we want. When somebody has an 84-month or 72-month payment, when are we going to be able to reasonably sell them another car? 60 months out. That's not what we want. Well, we could lease them. Ooh, that's a challenge. We don't have subsidized leases anymore. An A4 that you could lease for $399 4 years ago is now $700+ completely different dynamic. So what do you do?
So
I got an
the
idea.
other
You
thing
have to
is,
train
let me ask you, and then we have Stephen Epicella. He's coming up, and he's got a question. But so my question is this: a lot of lenders are tightening up, and they're not extending out these terms. So dealers are. I mean, if we're not putting the customer on the right car to begin with, how do we get through the affordability crisis on these payments? I mean, especially if in fact that these payments are higher anyway, interest rates are higher, and now we're being squeezed on these terms.
Well,
How
for
does that all work?
starters, don't you think if our salespeople are professionally trained on a regular basis, think about it. I'll never forget Kobe Bryant used to say famously that the average kid in America would go to practice 3 times a week and practice for somewhere between 1 and 2 hours. He said, I practice 4, 5, 6, 7 hours every day. Who do you think is going to win 365 days later?
I would
So
think
if we got to train our salespeople every single day, Grant Cardone, I've known Grant for over 30 years. You can count on something as a salesperson with Grant Cardone. You're getting trained every single day. You're going through role play. You're going through every scenario. So if we do that and our salespeople set up the clients the right way, if they're consultative in their approach, and if they make sure, Becky, that we find out exactly what's right for you. Where are you from an economic standpoint? Where are you from a down payment standpoint? Where are you from a budgetary standpoint? then I can make sure that I help you navigate to something that's going to make you happy, that's going to delight you, but that's also going to live within your parameters. If I instead just kind of let them take me where they take me, and they pick a car, if somebody wants to buy their first house and they pick, what are they going to pick? $1 million, $2 million
Sure,
house.
why not? I
They
like
can't get
it.
approved on
I've
the
got the
house.
pool in the backyard.
Right. Why not? I want that. Oh yeah. Do you want the little hovel that's 800 square feet, or would you like this 6,000 square foot estate with the swimming pool
That's
inside
okay.
the
They'll
house?
come up with a down
Right.
payment.
Right. So what happens is we put ourselves in a hole, have to dig ourselves out. No wonder clients tend to leave dealerships unhappy. Why? Because they had to ultimately acquiesce or settle. Well, when's the last time you acquiesced or settled for anything that you said that was a delightful experience? It's not. It's not what we should be doing. We
I
need to
think I
try.
think it's tough to go ahead and pigeonhole someone into a corner, and I don't know why we're not utilizing the technology and why some dealers are really having a tough time with that, Dave. And they really are. They're more or less still kind of caught in the way that they've always done business. Put the customer on any car, sell on emotion, get the customer into the dealership, and we'll put everything together. Don't you dare talk about these payment options in advance. And that is not the way we're going to lose customers when you do that. When in fact you talk about those terms earlier on in the process. Here's what I want to do. I want to talk about Steven Apicella is up here. Modern retailer isn't just one-time transaction. It's not hoping customers will return as a strategy. Your dealer experience, or should be, one, simplify dealer customer ownership journey together before and after the sale. Amen. Isn't it always before and after the sale? Motivated and trained employees are required, but processes need to evolve to earn that reoccurring customer.
So let me unpack a couple things that Steven said. I like Steven's
Okay.
as well. So a couple things that he said. First of all, I was sharing this. I was asked to come speak to a 20 group, and they were all mega dealers. They all own 10 plus dealerships. And I said, I want you to think about something. Number one, why do we call it digital retailing when there's no, like, these platforms that exist today don't actually, in fact, allow me to digitally retail anything? I said, let me just give you an example. You pull up your phone right now, you pull up your phone, or you go to Amazon, you search for a specific book, you get to browse through the first 5 or 10 pages. It looks great. I stick it in my shopping cart, right? I go to check out. This is easy. My information's already there. Where I want it shipped is there. Easy. My card payment is already there. And I hit submit. And the minute I hit submit, it says, congratulations, just come to the closest Amazon bookstore and pick up your book. That's what we have today in digital retailing, what we're calling digital retailing, right? It's not DR. Now, some people are, Ron Fry, a good friend, brilliant guy, coined the term modern retailing. But I don't think that we are ultimately where we need to be. And it's so funny. I have so many dealers will say, listen, people don't want to buy cars online. No, they don't want to buy online with the scenario that exists today, with the platform that exists today. But when you give them a brilliant platform, it's funny. All Tesla owners buy online. Oh, and by the way, do I have a discount? No, they pay full price. What's their net promoter score? It's up here. Does Apple give a discount? Nope. Is it a single point of contact? Yes. Is it a one price scenario? Yes. What's their net promoter score? It's up here. Same thing with Amazon. It's up here. And here we are. We continue to go in this approach to where we're taking things in a different route. You see, in DR, it's a single point of contact and a one price scenario. And yet we let people go through our online experience, and it feels simple, easy, transparent, with shared control of the process. That's everything a consumer wants today. And then they go in the store. And it's like Austin Powers. I'm in a different time and place. And it's no longer a single point of contact. It's no longer a one price scenario. Now it's, oh, no, no, no. I know it showed that you had a trade value, but we have to look at your trade. No, no, no. I know it said that you're qualified for that payment, but it turns out you have to put another $2,000 down. Listen, I think digital retailing, we've just invented a brand new, more modern, high-tech way to piss off people. That's what we've done. So we've got to continue pushing forward to improve that process to allow for a true end-to-end experience. And when you have products out there, solutions like A to Z Sync, which allows the dealership to quickly and simply and easily elevate their entire sales team by doing two things. The other thing Stephen mentioned, process. It creates a validated, verified, proven process that allows a single person to deal with a client from beginning to end, thereby reducing staffing, reducing expense. And as a bonus, you make more money, and better yet, the customer's happier. So there's more and more dealers that are saying, you know what, I need to go to that process because now my online scenario and my offline scenario are the same. Single point of contact. It makes sense. There's no more disconnect. There's no more confrontation. So process doesn't get enough credit. Process is not sexy, but what it delivers is really sexy. It's better results, happier customers, happier salespeople, more professional salespeople, more consistent results, and more profitability. So I'm a big fan of what the Champ organization created out of the real world from his own dealership organization, and it's been proven to work very effectively.
So here's the thing I want to ask you. I see A to Z, and there's some things still I need to kind of figure out with A to Z. I like the idea of the ability to communicate with the customer online to in dealership. That is so important. I like the idea that make it easy for the customer, engage the customer way. I don't care how, from online to in dealership, it needs to be the same. I get that. So I'm just, again, in different dealerships, as much as you are in different dealerships throughout the country, um, you have different types of clientele. More customers have slow pay history than perhaps customers who don't. And I can see that model play out brilliant. But for those customers who may have that slow pay credit history, that we depend more on desking and having a better understanding of how to work with that customer. And even when we talk about that F&I person working together being cohesive with that desk, hopefully, we can maximize opportunity there. That being said, there's been some talk here, and I'm sure you have seen it because you're on top of a lot of things. CarMax article came out, I think was Automotive News. No, not Auto, it was Auto Finance News, sorry. And come out with pre-qualifying customers on the lot. We're pre-qualifying customers on the lot now to assure that customers meet certain credit criteria or what they likely will be approved for. And then AutoNation now, and maybe it's been a year going, I don't know, but I just realized has text, and I don't have the right number, whatever that text is, number, and they get a pre-approval amount. It's really simple, self-desking for the customer to understand those terms. So I had to share that in my F&I today with Becky Chernek group in Facebook. And I got to tell you, it was like, are you kidding me? This is crazy. We don't want to do this. What do you think?
Well, it's funny. Um, you know, it's so natural for businesses to understandably want to run their business as they see fit. And it's their prerogative, it's their right. But we're living in different times. We're living in extraordinary times. And, the reality is in every decade I've been in this business, Becky, I started in 1981, 41 years ago. I'm going into my 42nd year. In every decade, in the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, I knew, worked with, or had experience with people that were absolute stone cold rock stars in their era But some of them just could never make the transition from one era to the next. And as a result, it ended up completely changing the trajectory of their dealership or the trajectory of their own individual career. Here's the problem. The problem is, as much as we want to dictate internally the way we want things to go, the process we want clients to go through, the reality is we're living in a time where it's the rise of the customer. And ultimately, have we noticed lately? It's the customer who will dictate what's going to happen. And I want you to keep something in mind. We have 7 generations on this earth right now, right? We got the greatest generation, silent generation. You got the baby boomers, you got the millennials, you got the Gen Zs, right? You've got the Gen Alphas, which are born after 2012. But you got all these different Gen X, you got all these different generations out there. And it wasn't the silent generation or the greatest generation or the baby boomers that want brick and mortar stores to close. They want their stores back. They want them all open. Who dictated? Why did that happen? Well, it started with Gen X, and the nail in the coffin was put in courtesy of the millennials. Well, when we look at where we're going, some people will resist things like Web 3.0, blockchain, cryptocurrency. It's all NFTs. It's all voodoo. Really? Because the top sports organizations and some of the top brands in the world don't look now, but they're all moving towards NFTs, not the NFT of LeBron James that some knucklehead paid $208,000 for a video on NFT. No, we're talking about NFTs with utility. And while we may think that's crazy, you watch, just watch. It's the millennials, the Gen Zs that are going to drive this. Buying cars online. You know that they surveyed automotive executives across the country, Becky, and they asked them what percentage of deals will happen completely online by 2030. The answer, 50%. 50%. Now, if you ask most dealers today, no way, people don't
No
want
way, Nick.
right? Then UBS did a very interesting study globally. Every market, they took their top auto analyst across every market, and they ended up creating a study, 71-page report from the UBS labs, evidence labs. And they said by 2030, what percentage of deals will happen online? Interesting, 50%. Same thing as the executives. Now, do you wonder if maybe they know something we don't know? And I believe what they do know is that when you look at other industries, other verticals like furniture, over 40% of furniture happens online now. By the way, you could sell your house online now. You know, every other vertical has gone, other than real estate, is above 35, 40%. Auto is still in the single digits. And they see this as a big opportunity. OEMs want to be competitive with Rivian, with Lucid, with Tesla. They want to remain competitive, right? And so
Right.
we hear a lot about EVs. We hear a lot about where the OEMs are wanting to go, the agency model or this or that. But the reality is, I think the OEMs can see the writing on the wall. If they don't remain competitive, they're at risk. They are at risk, not just us, they are. And so
Right.
we got to figure out a way to work together as partners, which we should be with our OEM partners, to figure out how to move forward. And the
So
reality
it was
is
interesting.
customers will dictate, Becky, how this is going to play out.
And I couldn't agree with you more. So you and I are so much on the same page. I don't know if you've realized this or not, but another article about is it Click Lane? And with Asbury, the Asbury Group,
Mm-hmm.
everything online. And
You
so
got
they
Driveway
claim
with Lithia too.
Lithium. Okay. All right. So their claim to fame is $2,200 per car online. So of course I can't wait to go ahead and put that in my F&I today with Becky Chernek Group. And I hope everyone, please make it a point to, if you're not there, you need to join. So I put that in that group, and when you know it, lo and behold, it was no way, that is not happening completely online. So what's really happening, they're saying, is that most customers, I'm just telling you what they're telling me, this is internal employees are sharing with me, no, that's not really what's happening. What's happening is that they're clicking through no, that they don't want any of these additional products. And meanwhile, what's happening, customers are coming into the dealership to finalize the transaction, and we are closing the sale and upselling those products. Now, however which way, which I think is still pretty efficient, whether you're completing the sale completely online or you're starting it and finalizing it and even upselling those products via online, is still good. But what they're saying is that those numbers may not necessarily be correct. But before we go there, I do want to acknowledge a couple of feedback here. Robert is saying, depending on your customer profile in your area, the customer fact-finding sheet interview is definitely the way to go. It helps us guide the customer to the right vehicle, save them time, serve them better, no matter which generation letter they wear. Couldn't agree with you more. I agree. We got to have a process and be more consistent in that process. And at the same time, I think it's important to really look at this and make sure that the information coming in is truly accurate, right? About what's happening online versus what's going on in the dealership. I've seen the transition of business, particularly in compliance, not being made through father and son owners, generations at time. They have to be really patient to move these stores forward. So I'm hearing what you're saying, that the two aren't kind of thinking the same
Here's the reality. Listen,
way. Okay.
we're about to see unprecedented changes thanks to the FTC, the new FTC regulations and guidelines. This is not optional. Nobody's asking for anybody's opinion. Nobody's asking if you wanted, hey, you could do this if you want to do this. Listen, this is not optional. The CFPB has woken up. The CFPB was awarded a level of authority back in the Obama administration that just lay dormant, okay, for years. But March of this year, a letter came out from the CFPB that said, hello, we just noticed that we have access to a massive level of authority, and effective today, we're going to use that. Okay, that didn't happen before, and now that's in play. Then that was immediately followed by the FTC's announcement regarding these new regulations that will go in place in literally 30 days or so, right? And between the two, those are going to change things significantly. Again, this is not an option. Compliance is not an option. Public companies for years have been complying beyond the level where they were really required to, because they knew what's at stake, right? If you look at the what happened with Napleton, it was a $100,000 fine for 101 violations. That added up, if you do the math, $10.1 million. So you have potential reputational damage. You have significant financial exposure there. So this is a big deal. And the reality is the majority of dealers out there are great. They're doing everything they can to be compliant, to deliver a great experience to their customers. But there's some other dealers out there that just flat aren't doing that. They're not playing by the rules, right? And so it's interesting to me. There's so many other businesses out there in other industries, you know, like healthcare, like cell phones, like Wi-Fi, that consistently let people down, or they end up with these very low. They've got the lowest net promoter scores, the lowest CSI scores. And yet, because of 100,000 complaints per year on millions of transactions, the FTC feels the need to take action. We can't argue whether it's right or wrong, whether you agree with it or not. The only thing that matters is this is happening. And the reality is, listen, at the end of the day, if you're one of those great dealers out there that really does want to deliver a great experience for both your associates as well as your clients, you're going to be fine. But the onus is now on you to be able to take things up to a higher level. I was explaining this to the dealer group. When it comes to data and the data that you're required to protect, monitor, secure, you've got operational data, you've got warranty data, you've got client data, you've got credit card data, you've got DMS data, all these different data sources in your store. You only have ownership of your operational data, but you're required to manage, monitor, secure all that data. And so that's a big deal. So listen, if we are fully compliant out there, if we're doing things the right way, and by the way, this is not bad news. Do you remember what the F&I PVR was, Becky, pre the F&I menu that came out from JM&A? It was about $900 a copy across the country. It went up
Right.
to 1,800 when we put the menu in place. What did
That's
the
right.
menu do? Process.
Amen.
Process.
That's
Instead
right.
of having the rock and roll, I mean, that rock star F&I manager who got to choose customer by customer, what am I going to present? Should I show them the service contract? Should I show them the permaplate? Should I show them
Right.
whatever?
Pick
No,
and choose.
every product to every customer every time. What happened to MPIs in service when we implemented an MPI process? We went from having a handful of MPIs to nearly 100% on MPIs. And the menu process rendered a doubling in F&I. By the way, nothing contributes more money to your net profit than F&I, 85% of every dollar. Try that, new car department, used car department, parts of service, right? What did the MPI process do? It rendered more upsells, right, from every car that came in. Process is important. We need a defined, proven sales process. Don't forget, dealers, right now, if you don't have a process, a defined, proven process, you do have processes, meaning if you have 15 salespeople, all 15 are running their own process. And one of them's got an 8 car a month process, 12 car a month process, 15 car a month process. None of them are proven. None of them are consistent. So
Amen. So, I'll tell you,
we
I'd
need
love
more
to
process.
take you with me sometimes because it's so, I try to explain to a dealer, it's the unknown, what you don't know that's happening in each and
What
every
you
single
don't
one.
know can hurt you.
Thank you.
That
It
old
can.
expression, what you
How do you
don't know
manage what
can't
you
hurt
don't
you,
know?
is wrong. What you don't know can kill you. I walk into every store, pretty much, not all of them, but pretty much, probably 90% of the stores I walk into, Becky,
Yeah.
give me 10 minutes in a jump drive and I'll ruin your day. Okay, 10 minutes. Because every sales office, the computers are open. Sales managers, I can walk right in and sit down. F&I offices, not locked. Guess what? Credit apps and deals sitting on the desk. It's amazing. It's 2022, nearly 2023. Guys, we got to elevate. We've got to improve. We need more accountability, more transparency, and yes, more process.
So let me ask you a question. We know these are things we should have in place. I think that dealers have people that come into their dealerships, trainers, and probably not the best like you and I are, but I'm just saying they're in there and they are training up and they are saying these are things that we have to have in place. But yet it goes to deaf ears. It's like, I hear you. Not for me though. I don't have to mess with it.
But training, listen, training without process is like me giving you a gift certificate for the number one personal trainer on earth. This person, she turns people into freaking athletes, right? Into Adonises. And here's the deal. You get this woman, number one trainer on the earth, on planet Earth, and you get her twice a year. How's that going to change you? It's not going to change your nutrition, not going to change your health. It's not going to change your physique. It's not going to change your body. It's not going to change anything. That's the equivalent. If I bring a trainer in 2, 3, 4 times a year, that's evangelical in nature. What you have to have is you have to have a trainer who understands more than how to troubleshoot something, more than how to deliver an evangelical, inspirational, motivational message, or here's how to do things 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But if you don't have the process left there in place, and if you don't have buy-in from the top, a tree dies from the top. If you don't have buy-in from the top, nothing's going to change.
You do know one thing is going to happen here, don't you? I am taking this live and it's going to be on my website
Oh,
because
nice.
it's so true. It's all about, like Robert's saying right here, love your passion for process, David. Process protects and serves the client and makes that dealer and staff more
Totally agree with you, Robert.
money.
Hey,
Absolutely.
Robert, when you go into a FedEx, the person behind the counter is not somebody who graduated with a degree in logistics. We all know that. The person may have started 2 days, 3 days before then. And yet that package is going to go, if you want it to be in Shanghai tomorrow at 10:30, that freaking package is going to be in Shanghai at 10:30. How did that happen? Process. If you go to Starbucks, I don't know if you've ever stood in line behind this person, but I stand in line behind somebody and they're ordering, I want a 1/3 decaf, 2/3 decaf, half latte, half chai, 5 pumps of hazelnut syrup, 2 chocolate. I need some whipped cream. I want sprinkles that were organic, that were raised in the Peruvian Valley, in the Sacred Valley. Right? Oh, and it needs to be 195 degrees. And I'm always thinking, first of all, I'm so thankful that I'm not in a relationship with you. No offense, no hate mail, please. Number two, right, you probably have a therapist, which is great, fine. Number three, what did you do before Starbucks? What did you have, beakers at home and a chemistry set and a thermometer? Like, are you serious? But the reality is, what's really cool for that client is that's their right. It's their prerogative to order precisely what they want. Listen, everybody, success leaves clues. People want more personalization, more customization. You know what's cool about Starbucks? She could go to Shanghai, Des Moines, Iowa, Manhattan, Honolulu, pick a place, and she's going to get that drink precisely the way she wants it. Why? Process. Amazon, process. Apple, process. Process will make all the difference in the world. And if you do nothing else in 2023 but adopt and commit to having fantastic, proven, verified processes. You want to procure more cars and used cars? Process. You want to sell more cars out of your service drive? Process. You want to do anything? Process. Because that's going to elevate your team. That's going to set an expectation. And you know what else is cool? You get to accurately assess your people against one process instead of trying to measure 15 salespeople who are running 15 different processes. There's no way to accurately measure them.
So Paul says many years ago, I had a dealer tell me once he is not afraid of the boogeyman. And and this is so true. This is what happens here. 10 months after his visit, he lost 25 million in fines, and his GM and 2 of his F&I people went to jail.
Sounds like Southern California. Sounds like a certain Chevrolet dealer, maybe. But yeah, you know what? You again have the prerogative to run your store any way you want. Okay,
That's
but
right.
you got to wake up to the reality that our clients are more sophisticated, more educated, more knowledgeable than ever before. You have to deal with the reality, the fact that our customers' expectations keep going up. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a great thing. If you want to be sustainably profitable, if you want to compete against the Apples or the Teslas or the Rivians, that's what you've got to do, right? And dealers, retail dealers have some very significant competitive advantages if we leverage them, if we execute. And the reality is, listen, if you want to fly by the seat of your pants, you can do it. I just want you to do me a huge favor. Do yourself a favor. Please name any one of the top valued companies on planet Earth, any of the top performing professional sports teams on Earth. Please name one that does not do a couple things. Number one, they rely on data-driven decisions, not gut, not instinct. And number two, they are masters of process. So why is it that the best of the best that consistently grow, consistently have higher and higher value? You do want your store to be worth more every year, right? Well, why is it that the top companies do that? And why would you, on the other hand, not want to subscribe to that same philosophy? It just flat doesn't make sense. The biggest challenge is if you've got managers, if you do subscribe to that philosophy, which I believe most owners do, but if they've got one or more managers in that store that are running their own program, flying by the seat of their pants, going by their gut, how many times have we seen a used car manager go by their gut? They leave And then we find out that we're $800,000 in the hole or $300,000 in wholesale loss.
Yeah.
I'm
I
telling
tell
you,
you, sometimes this feels really good because I feel like sometimes I'm on my own in my own world here, and I'm wondering how do you justify this? How is it okay that you kind of let the GMs kind of or managers kind of run by the seat of their pants and reign over things and not inspect what you expect? And I know it's an easy phrase to say, but
you're abdicating your responsibilities when you do that. Listen, it's a choice. The only reason that happens is either you're not engaged, you're not paying attention, you're not looking at the numbers, you're not data driven, and you're hoping to God, or you're saying, listen, all I care about is how many cars do we sell this month and how much money am I going to make? That's not enough anymore. You need to dive deeper. We need to make sure that we've got a level of engagement that's going to protect you, protect your legacy, protect your life's work, protect your profitability, and protect your future. And to do that, we've got to dive deeper. We've got to know that. But here's the second thing. Again, if your people have an expectation to adhere to process, I'll never forget what Mike Maroney and Mike Jackson used to say repeatedly when I was working for them. And they did this for everybody who was an executive in that organization. And they said it applied to every GM. Listen, we have a framework, the AutoNation framework. You could be as entrepreneurial and exercise as much ingenuity as you want, provided you do it within this framework. If you go outside that framework, we've got a problem. Every dealer, every owner would be very wise to adopt that same belief, that same philosophy. Listen, used car manager, new car manager, service manager, warranty clerk, whatever it might be. We have a framework. Oh, by the way, that's called a process. And if you stay within that process, if you run the plays we're calling, we've got no problems. If it works, we give you the credit. If it doesn't work, I'll take the blame. And if you don't run the play, you can't play here.
Well, Vince Bailey says first thing that is a giveaway is employee retention is low or high, and people waiting to join their crew. 300% rule on inspection on every deal, everyday basis on goal sets. And okay, so that makes sense. Now, Paul, he was no, wait a minute. He was talking about that was that Chevy store, and
Oh, not a shit store.
that you're damn right there. Okay, so I'm going to pivot a little bit here, and we only have 10 minutes left, and I really want to kind of hit a little bit on your thoughts on what's going on with CarMax. And I know you have.
CarMax or Carvana?
Oh, I'm sorry, Carvana. Darn.
Yeah.
I meant Carvana. Absolutely. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. CarMax is a brilliantly run organization. Nobody does things perfectly.
I know. I
You
love
know, but
CarMax.
CarMax, and here's a really good example. In CarMax, there is process from the moment you step foot on that lot until the moment you leave, right? CarMax implemented a process over 2 decades ago, probably close to 25 years ago, that said, we will buy your car even if you don't buy one from us. Why'd they do this? Well,
That's what I said.
because
Yes.
the psychology says, I mean, the facts say, the data says that if there's a trade-in involved, the likelihood of closing a deal goes up significantly. And not only that, if I buy your car, I'm reducing or eliminating the fear factor from my client. If I buy your car, something tells me you're going to have to replace it most of the time with something else. And guess what? They did. So there's a reason they have never wavered from those processes, because they work. Again, success leaves clues. Now let's talk about Carvana. Well, that's a different animal, right? And I will give Carvana plainly credit for a number of things. Carvana helped to move the ball forward when it came to creating some way of connecting with a client online, trying to create greater transparency. Let's make this process easier. Let's make it faster. And there are people out there that have bought cars from Carvana who swear by that process. People who've sold cars to Carvana who swear by the process. And I get it. I understand. My challenge is with the business model. the last time I looked, any business model to where you lose money and you hope you're going to make it up on volume, that thing has never worked out very well, right? And the reality is, at the end of the day, in the year 2023 and beyond, you've got to figure out a way to be a viable company. There's no way to be viable long term unless you can generate free cash flow, unless you can make a profit. And the reality is this: we just wrapped up 2.5 years of the greatest time in the history of the car business. And if you can't figure out how to make a profit in those 2.5 years, I don't know, maybe the business model is not viable. Maybe it's broken. Now, let's be clear. They did make a profit. I believe it was Q2 of 2021, but it was a pretty modest profit, especially in comparison with all of the publics and all of the private dealerships. They just never have measured up to those industry standards. Listen, there's a problem here. The problem is they don't have fixed absorption the way a dealership does. They don't have a way to nurture a relationship with a customer long term. They don't have natural trade-ins. They don't have leasing. They don't have a relationship with an OEM. They don't have special programs. So, it sounds good to go chase that used car market. And why would you? Well, I get it. There's 39, 40 million used cars a year sold, whether we sold 10 million new or whether we sold 17 million new. Sounds pretty good on paper. The problem is, at the end of the day, when you look at their cost structure, and in this right now, here and now, Becky, when you look at their balance sheet, when you look at the level of debt, high cost debt that they have on their balance sheet, they've burned through $8 billion, I believe, if I'm correct, $8 billion. I don't know. Can any of you come up with a positive, successful, sustainable business model if I said, here's $8 billion to give it a shot? $8 billion freaking dollars. So if you're burning through that capital, you have no equity left, shareholder equity left that I could see. You have high debt. You don't have adequate cash flow. And you, by the way, don't have a business model that allows you to be profitable. And this is even after you acquired for $2 billion ADESA Auto Auction. Where do you go from here? Well, whether you like it or not, here's where you're going to go. You're going to go into a year in 2023 where you're going to see a softening in the used car market. You're going to see it being more difficult. And by the way, the last time I looked, I believe they have a very significant number of cars that are over 60 days old. Well, something tells me that some of those cars, most of those cars, perhaps they're underwater. They probably have a huge amount of wholesale loss. And if anybody out there that's been in that situation, if I've got 100 cars in stock, Becky, and 50 of them are underwater, I've got wholesale loss. As long as I don't sell them, as long as I don't wholesale them, I don't have to recognize the loss on my P&L. But it
Amen.
doesn't mean it's not there. So where do we go from here? I just don't see a path right now to profitability or sustainability. And maybe I'm wrong. For the sake of the investors and the sake of the employees, I hope I am wrong. So I'll give them credit for what they've done or what they've brought to the table in terms of innovation. I just struggle. And I really struggle with the fact that ownership was able to extract 3.6 billion with a B out of a company that ever since that time has just cratered. It's off. It went up 30% today from roughly 750 up to $10. Hallelujah. Okay. But it's still down 97%. 97% from 12 months ago.
So I saw a post, and I can't remember from who, but they said, now's the time to go ahead and buy some stocks in Carvana. I'm like, I don't know. What are your thoughts there?
Well, I don't know. I think now's the time also to engage in a high stakes, high dollar game of darts with a blindfold on. I don't know. I think your odds are going to be just as good either way. I believe it was Morgan Stanley. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Morgan Stanley called out that this may be a $1 stock. So I don't know. 40% of the stock is being shorted. I don't know. Does that give you the confidence to go out and put a bunch of money and buy Carvana even at its current rate? For me personally, no. I need to see something. At this point, I'm going to be the show me state, Missouri. And I'm going to say, you got to show me that there's a path that you could sustain stock value increases for more than a day or two for me to be able to put my money into it. For me,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
a pass.